Hello, this is Edith Neumeyer, and I am the author of the book, The Mystery of Adam. Well, I need to add a little bit to my last video, in which I talked about the red dragon. And I did recommend that you look up Gil Persard. And I did write in the comment section that, not to take him too serious. Well, I shouldn't say serious, but some of the things that I definitely do not agree with him on. I think he did a lot of great research on Nibiru. Okay, so lots of historical, astronomical kind of information. However, and I said he was a Christian, but I really do not agree with his timeline for the rapture and for the wrath of God. Okay, he gives some really strange. It gives a really strange timeline, and I'm going to explain that. Going back to Revelations 12 with the red dragon, there's some that I can actually explain. He believes that there's two groups. Okay, and the first group will be taken into the wilderness, and I think he uses the word raptured. And the second group will be taken, I don't know where. So he's believing there's two raptures, and of course I don't agree with that because I don't see that. So when we're going back, it becomes very obvious, and I don't know where in the world he came up with it. When you go back to what I talked about last time, the red dragon in Revelation 12, when we go to verse 5, and it says she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. That defines this male child. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. I mentioned Scotty Clark last time, and he said that word caught up is the same word that was used in Thessalonians. The original word, Greek word, is harpazo, and it means the very same thing as rapture. Okay, harpazo. Caught up, of course, is the verb. Okay, the noun of this caught up would be raptured or rapture. So that's why he believed that this child is actually the church. And I say, well, this child is part church, but it is also the head as well. So it is Jesus and the church. He comes down, he connects and combines, he connects again with the church. He becomes one person, and then he is harpazo, or raptured, or caught up to, it says here, to God and his throne. And that is exactly what we're seeing. Okay, we're seeing this picture. Remember, I showed it before, chapter 12 in 7. Yep, in 7. We see it with the group that starts in verse 9, the big group that stands up there before the throne, before God. And then we see it again, Revelation 14, when we see the Lamb and the 144,000 on Mount Zion. Again, where it said it's not literal Mount Zion, it is actually Mount Zion in heaven, because we see then that there are in heaven. In verse 2, we can see that they're actually then in heaven. So that is what he is, referring to right there. Oh, that's what I'm saying. Okay, this correlates with the crowd that is in heaven. Okay, so he was caught up, and who was caught up? Well, the Lamb and the church is caught up, and they're considered this male child, both of them together, that then will rule all the nations with a rod of iron. Okay, rod of iron. Okay, why is that so? Because we will reign with Christ. We are joint heir with Christ, and we will reign with him during the millennium. So it's not just the head who's reigning, but the whole Messiah, okay, which we are included in the Messiah. The church is included in the Messiah, and that's why I believe, as Scotty was somewhat right in that regard. Then in verse 6 we can see, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God. Now see, this Gill was talking about this being raptured into the wilderness. This does not say being raptured into the wilderness. It says fled into the wilderness. Okay, this is not a rapture. You're not there and then you're someplace else. That's rapture. When you caught up, that means you're here and then you up there. Okay, this is not the second one, the verse 2, which is now the second group, not the first group like Gill is explaining, but it's the second group. The second group, again, which we have seen with the 144,000 in chapter 7 of Revelations, is now this woman that's being taken into the wilderness and being kept in the wilderness. Well, why am I saying that? See, these are nourished, they're not raptured, where she had a place prepared by God so that there she might be nourished for 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years. And then when we continue to read, we will see the same thing. The same group is again described in more detail is in verse 13. 13 says, 12:13, and when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Okay, so where is he? On this earth. And the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she might fly into the wilderness to her place where she was nourished for a time and a times and a half, and a time from the presence of the serpent. And the serpent poured out water, against the woman. So he was trying to destroy the woman. But the woman here is where on this earth. She's not being raptured in heaven. This group is on this earth. So that's why I believe that Gill is really not correct on his timeline. So I'm not suggesting that he's got it right. Okay, I think he's just doing a good job with this Nibiru. Now, there's some things that I probably also kind of leery about him, because I think also with his timeline. At this point, I think he should know better that this Nibiru is on its way, full on its way. Okay, he says, "Oh, we have to wait until it moves past Saturn and Jupiter," and I'm thinking, wait a minute, we have to wait. Isn't Jupiter and even Saturn already affected by this incoming planet? We already know that Saturn is affected, and I have seen, stuff, scientific stuff that shows that right now Saturn is affected by something, and there's changes going on Saturn. So he doesn't know that. So somehow I think he is not 100%. I'll just call it he's not 100% honest. But again, he still gives you good information to start from. So anyway, so again, here you have the two groups again, and they kind of get intermingled. See, you see this group in verse 6, and you only have one verse, and then you have a more expanded version when you go to 13, 14, 16, 17 even. Okay, so you see then more a detailed version. That's why it's not necessarily totally chronological. Okay, it's some of these things may be just two accounts telling you the same thing. Again, we saw what? Two accounts right now of the church standing before the throne. And now I'm showing you two accounts kind of well with yeah, and now I'm telling you two accounts of this woman, which was again in chapter 7 and now in Revelation 12. And again, which is divided a little bit, and then again starting on 13, you kind of look at this group in an even bigger way of what is going to happen to this group. And again, this group is described in the first account and in the second account. Okay, so I thought I better bring that in because I know lots of people just are confused about that. Again, I think Revelation is a very confusing a book. It's very confusing, and so we have to really dig deep into it. So, anyways, and if you continue reading from chapter 12, again, then you come to the beast. In 13, you come to the two beasts, which lately I really learned about those two beasts. And, well, let me just share it with you. The first beast out of the sea, and that really has not very much to do with the church, but again, because the church most likely may be gone by that time. Okay, but the beast, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. That's not true either, because the church is not going to be gone. See, and this is the strange thing about Revelation, because it seems to be jumping. Because this first beast from the sea, this one interpreter said, Bible teacher said, that this is the Roman Catholic Church or the Vatican. He described that very clearly as the Vatican. Why did he describe it as the Vatican? Because he made a list of things that this beast is described as certain things. And then he could really assign these things that were assigned to the first beast by reading chapter 13, 1 through 10. You can then apply that to the Vatican. For instance, which other person blasphemed? Okay, and he described as blasphemed, you make yourself God and you forgive sins. So what other entity or what other king or what other system, reigning system, did that? Well, and that is really what we have seen since the First Roman Empire is the Pope. The Pope made himself Christ. He is the vicar of Christ, and he can make the decision that only Christ could really make. Okay? And therefore, he's making himself God, because Jesus is God, and so he makes himself Christ, and so he is making himself God. And he sits where? He sits in the temple of God. Where is he sitting? In the temple of God. Why is he sitting in the temple of God? Because he set himself into the church, which is the temple of God. And he made himself the head of the church. Okay, he made himself head of the church, which is who? Well, that is Jesus only. That's the only one who can have that place, the head of the church. And the Pope did that in the church. He set himself into the church or at the temple. Okay, and I see that. I mean, I see that very clearly. See that very clearly. I mean, some people say, "Oh, there has to be a third temple." Yeah, okay, if you want to see it that way, but I also see it in a spiritual way. In a spiritual way, the Pope set himself into the temple that Jesus Christ was building, okay, and declared himself to be the head. He is Jesus on this earth, and so he is the head of the church. Now, is that blasphemous? Yes. And who is forgiving sins? The priest. You go to confession, and the priest is forgiving your sins. Nobody can do that except God. And so that's what the Pharisees had a big time, with Jesus, because Jesus forgave sin. And the Pharisees said, that's blasphemy. Nobody can forgive sin except God. Well, he was God. That's how he demonstrated that he was God. But can the Pope do it or the priests do it? No, they can't do it. Okay, that's blasphemy. And so he's saying, well, that is in verse 13:5, it says, and there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. Okay. Again, these 42 months are symbolic and are really, I don't know how many years, 1,260, I believe, years. Okay. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, blaspheme the name and his tabernacle, that is those who dwell in heaven. Okay. Here it says his name and his tabernacle. What is his tabernacle? His temple. Okay. His temple. He blasphemed against his tabernacle, which is his temple. That is those who dwell in heaven. Okay, those who dwell in heaven. He blasphemes. So, and what did he do? I mean, it was given to him to make war with the saints and overcome them, and authority over every tribe, people, and tongue and nation was given to him. Well, who is that? That is the Vatican. Okay, that is very, very clearly described as the Vatican. So, and the Vatican also had what? A wound. See, the Vatican was wounded. The Vatican was killed under Napoleon. Napoleon was just fed up with the Roman Catholic Church making all the decisions and running everything in Europe. So Napoleon actually stopped the Vatican, and the Vatican didn't exist for a while. And then later on, somebody reinstituted papacy again, and so you can say, well, this deadly wound was healed. Okay, so now they're back again into the race. Okay, but papacy was around since 316, and so this is really, yes, prophetic, looking in the future for John, but again, for us, it is really looking back, and it's still going on. Okay, now what is also not even in the future, but in our past, is the second beast. The second beast which came out of the earth. But first, let me add something. The first beast out of the sea. Okay, do you know what the Vatican is called? The Holy what? The Holy See. Okay, so I know there's a correlation. The Holy See. The Vatican is called the Holy See. And here is saying, and he stood on the sand of the seashore, and I saw a beast coming up out of the sea. Okay. I see a correlation. It just pops in my head, and I really think if it pops in my head, then the Holy Spirit is trying to show me something. So now going to the second beast that came out of the earth, and I saw another beast, and that's in Revelation 13:11. And I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. Okay, so he had qualities of a lamb, and who is a lamb? Well, the believers. The believers are lambs, right? They're sheep. And so this second beast that is coming out of the earth has lambs, has sheep. Okay, that's why it looks like two horns like a sheep. However, it speaks like a dragon. So there's also a power to it. The power of the dragon is also in it. Okay, it may look like a lamb, it may look peaceful, it may look like Christian, like a Christian nation, but yet who is behind it? Really the dragon, which is Satan. So he believes that the second animal, the second beast that came um, out of the earth is the United States. Okay, so then this second lamb, it says, and I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he who had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon, and he exercised all the authority of the first beast in his presence. So in his presence means they're both exist, or their existence overlap at least. Okay, their existence is overlapping. Now he also said, and historically we know that United States was formed or started to become into existence actually at the same time that the Vatican stopped. That the wound of the Vatican was happening. Okay, when the wound of the Vatican Church or the Vatican Church received the wound. Okay, that's during that time when the United States became into existence. Okay, so there's a correlation there. So the earth and those who dwell on it, and he makes the earth and those who dwell on it worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. Okay, so I don't know when that will happen. That sounds something maybe that will happen more in the future. We haven't seen that. And then he performs great signs so that he even makes fire come down from heaven to earth in the presence of men. Okay, now is that something that the United States can do? Bring fire down from heaven in the presence of men? Yes, yes. Okay, look at all the bombs. Look at all the bombs, and that's definitely fire from heaven. If you would have seen how Germany was bombed during the Second World War, you would know that that's what it is. They made fire come from heaven. How about uh, um, the nuclear bomb in Japan, or two, I think there were. Okay, was that fire coming down from heaven? Oh yes. Okay, and all the other wars, can they cause fire come from heaven? Yes. Okay, so United States can absolutely do that. Now, can somebody else do it too? Yeah, Russia can, but again, I don't think this really applies to Russia. If you continue to, to read, then this is again talking about a beast, and it talks about a world empire. Russia is not a world empire. So right now, the world empire is the United States. Okay, so this is happening right now. Okay, we are waiting for these beasts to come up out of the sea and out of the earth. And yet, if you listen to this guy, and it makes sense to me, it makes absolute sense to me, okay? He compares this beast out of the sea with the little horn in Daniel, When you look at the little horn in Daniel and how Daniel describes that little horn, it really, really also looks like the Vatican. And so does this beast out of the sea. Okay? So now we're having here the United States being a beast out of the earth, and we're going to see how that will develop. I just listened to something just before I started this video on what's going on with the United States. We know, yes, we in the United States, the the Protestant religion was really in the forefront. Okay. However, there is also, and it has always been, the Catholicism kind of in the background. For instance, Kennedy was Catholic. Okay. Both of the vice presidents in the last running were Jesuit trained. So is Trump. Okay. So is Trump. Now, Pence is calling himself an evangelical Catholic, whatever that is. I have no idea. It doesn't even make sense. But he's calling himself evangelical Catholic. He is a Catholic. He's Jesuit trained, and so therefore he's on the Catholic side. We know that Trump at this point is also he's looking like he is helping Israel, and he is really supporting Israel, and I really also believe that he is an Israel supporter. But at the same time, Trump is also a supporter of the Catholic Church. There is no doubt whatsoever that he is a supporter of the Catholic Church. And he himself went to went to a Catholic school, okay, and so he was Catholic trained. So that is all extremely important to remember when we are looking at how again then this second beast, and I don't think we're completely there yet. Okay, this has not all transpired yet. Is that this second beast will make people, or he will erect an image of the first beast, and then will make people worship the image of the first beast. Okay, let's see, and we can see that in 15. No, even already in 14. Okay, so 13, 14. In Revelation 13:14, it starts already. So they are saying, make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has come to life. And there was given to him to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast might even speak and cause as many as do not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Okay, we need to still see that happening. That's not happening yet. And it says, and he causes all the small and the great and the rich and the poor and the free men and the slaves to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. Okay. And again, we don't see that at this point either. But I think they're probably working on that. But again, we know this beast is already has already been created. It has just, we're kind of in the middle of what's perspiring with this second beast. Okay, now when that is, and this does not necessarily mean it has to be totally done by the time the wrath starts. Okay, because see, the next one we're seeing the 144,000 on Mount Zion, which is 14. And so the rapture is happening. The saints will be taken out, and then we see again we're seeing the vision of the reapers, and then in 16 we're going into the wrath, or 15, part of 15, then we're going into the wrath again. Okay, so the second beast and the first beast, they can go all the way through the rapture. Okay, just because they're described right there in this section does not mean they don't have to go, continue during the the rapture. So that's why this is pretty a complicated book. Okay, very complicated. So, but I want to stop right there for today because this is already enough. I want you to read it and let me know what you think about all this. I may be wrong. Okay, we're tapping around, in this difficult book with different interpreters. But what I'm doing, I'm just going by exactly what the book is saying. And I'm trying to understand that everything is not chronological. That you may have a picture here of something, okay? And then you may have the same event described here, maybe in a different way. Um, then you may have, like for instance, the two beasts described over here that may have started a long time ago, and the wrath of God maybe starts in the middle between these two beasts. So it's a little bit more complicated than what some people think. And I think the most important thing is that the Holy Spirit has to open up your eyes. Okay? If you submit yourself to God and really want to know um, what He's saying about Revelation, then He will show you. He will show you if you are worthy to to see what's going on. And when I'm talking about worthy, I'm talking about when you respect what He's showing you. So many people, they want to see their own little thing, okay? And so, and they want to use it for their own benefit. And that is not respecting who God is. So we're going to have to just totally pour everything out that is our thinking and say, God, show us what all this means. And the Holy Spirit, has guided me in that, quite a lot. I think sometimes I'm thinking, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on here. And then I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm thinking, wow, that is amazing. He just showed me these things, or he guides me, even like even on YouTube, to see, for instance, what these two beasts mean. Okay, I was struggling before about these two beasts, and yet it makes sense because I had parts of it, like the first beast out of the sea. I knew that this is speaking about the Vatican, but I could never put it together. How this first beast, the Vatican, and the second beast, which is the United States, kind of fit together. Okay. So, anyways, I will stop here. And again, do your research and let me know what you think, because I do want to know. I really do want to know. I want to learn and I want to hear different things. And so if the Holy Spirit is showing you something, share it. All right. I will talk some more later. Keep studying.